in. Welcome. Good to see y'all's faces.
Good evening,
Hey, who said that? I couldn't see.
Grace.
You gonna turn on your camera today?
Yeah, I
Good to
am.
see you,
I'm
Grace.
looking all right. I can turn on the camera.
Hey, we don't care how you look. We're just glad you're here.
Thank
Shout
you
out
for
to
having
Sharon,
me.
too, who has a camera on. Annette, Sharon. I see y'all. Oh, already ready with the hearts emojis. Come on, volunteer community. Yes. The more you guys, we like to connect in this space by turning our cameras on. So go ahead and turn your cameras on so we can connect with each other, see each other. Yes. All right. We still have a few more folks. I see Dirk. Oh, okay.
Janice, what are
Sharon,
you eating? It looks
driving in, listening. I appreciate you.
good. That was some cheesecake.
Y'all are
No,
funny.
it's some old
Driving,
cake
so
from
my camera said
yesterday.
I'm up.
Yes. Come on, Alexandra. Yes. Jerry, let's go. Let's see some more cameras on. Annette, Connie. Yes. What is that, Sharon? What are we drinking? Yes, join us. Come in. We have a few more folks joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started. But as we're letting folks in, you guys, y'all know
Equal
what.
Rights Amendment, ERA now, the Equal Rights Amendment.
Oh, that's the cup. Okay, I got you. I got you.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
I appreciate you doing that while you're driving. Yes, good to see y'all. And apologies for any pauses that I have. I'm also letting folks in. So good to see everybody. Yes, please turn on your cameras. We want to see your faces. We want to connect. We're having important conversations today. And we're so glad you all are joining us for our monthly discussion. And of course, as you guys know, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're going to be talking about that. We have mental health advocates on this call you will be hearing from, and folks who are in the mental health profession. And so you'll be hearing from folks just talking about why this topic is so important beyond just this month. So one thing that I always have to remind you guys of, this is a safe space. And in order for it to be a safe space, we have to make sure that we're uplifting each other. Even if we hear something that we don't agree with, we're staying positive, being negative towards each other. We're keeping this space it's free and full of power and love, okay? Full of power and love. And we definitely want to keep that same energy. And make sure that you use the emojis. You know, we love to do it here. Miss Staley already did it. We love to do the emojis, celebrate each other, celebrate when people share their opinions, uplift each other's opinions, make sure that you're supporting each other and then not bringing in any negative power dynamics that we see out in the real world, okay? And so with that, I will stop talking. I just want to definitely thank you all for showing up today because these are important conversations. And I'm going to turn it over to a familiar face that you all know very well if you have been to one of these before. And that's to our volunteer, Lauren Matthews. She's amazing, you guys. She's been working with us for 2 years. She's been leading on these conversations, moderating, doing the research with us, strategizing with us, and all this while having a full-time job. So she truly is amazing. And so we appreciate her. And y'all know what we do when people come to the stage, volunteer community, applause, claps, hearts, thank yous, whatever you can put in the chat for Lauren. So Lauren, coming to the stage and I'll put myself on mute.
Okay, thank you so much, Matilda. And thank you all again for joining us today. This conversation, Black people and mental health, is not only timely, but it's vital. It's about visibility, about truth telling, and about creating the kinds of conversations that lead to real change. So mental health in Black communities is often under discussed and just under supported, and that silence has consequences. But today we are here to break that silence. We are here to listen. We are here to learn and to lead into healing together. So we are incredibly fortunate to have a panel of dynamic, thoughtful, and deeply experienced voices with us today. So I'm going to start off by introducing them. And we have first Mr. Lamar Walker. He is a licensed professional counselor with over 21 years of experience working with various populations of individuals and helping them improve their mental health. Lamar is the CEO and founder of Mindful Works Counseling, a private mental health practice that helps individuals improve their emotional and behavioral difficulties through the use of storytelling, a therapeutic technique that aids individuals in processing trauma and big emotions. Lamar is passionate about men's mental health, and spreading awareness and education around societal expectations of masculinity and how it impacts the psyche of men. Lamar believes that helping others is his purpose in life. He also spends his time as a keynote/public speaker on men's mental health and community advocate. He is a servant leader and member of the XL Neal 588 Prince Hall Masonic, along with the Kappa Alpha Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. In all of the roles he plays, Lamar will tell you his favorite role to play is dad. So let's give a clap for him. All right, so next we have Ramaya Coleman, She is an MSW, a CSW, and is a dedicated mental health professional with over 15 years of experience serving children, families, and communities across Kentucky and Western Tennessee. Her career spans a range of impactful roles, including therapist, clinical supervisor, family wellness specialist, and medical social worker, each centered on her deep commitment to trauma-informed care, crisis management, and systematic support for vulnerable populations. Currently serving as a clinical therapist, Ramaya specializes in adult mental health, conducting group and family therapy, crisis intervention, and discharge planning. Her earlier work has included leading foster care case management teams, training new social workers, and building community programming in underserved communities and providing direct therapeutic services in both residential and outpatient settings. She is a passionate advocate for children or child welfare and family empowerment. She has delivered programming on parenting, stress management, and holistic family wellness through community health centers. She holds certifications in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy and targeted case management, and has been a trusted mentor to students and professionals alike. Whether speaking on trauma, child protection, or therapeutic best practices, Ramaya brings not only clinical expertise, but a powerful message of hope, resilience, and system-level change. So let's clap it up for her. Ramaya. Okay, perfect. So last we have Jamil Davis, and he is a Black Voters Matter state organizing manager for Florida. He is an artist, a community activist, and a podcaster and an organizer, and a proud father of a beautiful girl, also known as Woke Baby. Jamil is a mental health advocate who is honest and open about his journey with therapy and has changed his life for the better. Okay, perfect. So thank you so much to all of our panelists today. And now we are going to jump into our first questions. So first question, when did you first realize mental health was important in your life and in your life or community?
I guess I can tackle it. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
I noticed it when I realized that in our community, there was a lot of us that masked grief, anger, and depression as just surviving or just life or I'm okay. And in realizing that, probably around 04, that's when I got into the mental health field. And realizing that, I also noticed it within not just not just within the community abroad, but within myself, my family, my friends, and just recognizing, hey, you know what I'm saying? Just surviving or just being okay is not okay. That there's more to it. There's more emotions. There's more things that are going on below the surface. So it became a mirror in many ways.
Okay. Yeah. I think for me, it's very similar. It wasn't one moment, but a series of like small ones that kind of added up. I just started noticing how many people in my family or like my community were carrying so much, whether it's stress, grief, and a pressure, and it just felt like it just kept going. And we didn't always call it, in fact, nobody really called it anxiety or depression. We just said, oh, they're going through it, or, they're tired. But at some point, I realized that pushing through wasn't healing. And it wasn't until I started learning more about mental health and just seeing people I care about struggle in silence that I understood how necessary it is to talk about it, to name it, and just ask for help without shame. And to pick it back off of what Lamar said, the okay, I'm okay. We hear it all the time. It could be so loaded. And most of the time it's just a reflex, like, or you think like, okay, somebody's asking me how I am, but they don't really care about how I am, and if they do care, they really can't do anything about it. And we say we're fine because we don't feel like there's a space not to be, kind of. And like you said, so many people are just surviving. They're not really living or healing. But I think that when we start noticing that the I'm okay is masking real struggle for some, that's when we know something has to change. And we have to create some spaces where people feel safe enough to say, actually, I'm not okay. And I know I won't be judged for it.
Can I add to what you were just saying as well, too?
Yeah. Sure.
I actually want to piggyback off of both of you because I think it's absolutely right. It wasn't just one moment. I think it was a series of things. And when you work especially in the social work profession, you have the opportunity to work with so many people from so many different socioeconomic backgrounds, and you see the different struggles that so many people are going through. And I kept seeing so many children that were being diagnosed as ADHD because of some of the behaviors that they were showing. And it's really not ADHD, it was more so PTSD from some of the communities and some of the things that they had experienced and witnessed and went through. And I am so sorry for my dog. I apologize so much for them. But it is just one of those things where when you look inside your own family and you recognize and what's going on, those silence of those things where you're saying what happens in our home stays in our home, but the what happens because of keeping it in the home, and there isn't any true healing, to having that space for vulnerability and that shame that you were mentioning, Lauren, that so many people experience, and trying to overcome that as well too. So it was kind of witnessing it over the years and for so long with so many different people.
Of course. And I'm sure we all have heard like some version of, what happens in the house stays in the house. And while it's meant to protect the family, it often ended up just protecting that pain and keeping things hidden instead of like healed. And when we look into our own families, we start to realize how much was left unspoken, like the trauma, the depression, the anxiety. I'm sure all of it was pushed down generation after generation. I know some people who are trying to be contrarian now, they're like, oh, our grandparents didn't have all these things or these ailments and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I'm sure that a lot of Black people have a family member who kind of didn't talk, or like, it's like, oh, he never said anything. And it's like, that's not, what should be happening. And I think that breaking that silence, like we're doing here today, is one of the most powerful things that we can do for ourselves and for the people coming after us as well.
If I can, I think for me, it initially started just due to the work that I do. Long before even being an organizer with Black Voters Matter, just being a community organizer, you have to like just really sit and just you have to sit with all of the traumas that we're dealing with as Black people in America, and just have to figure out what's that healthy outlet. And I can only write so many songs. Like, I can only write so many songs. I can only produce so many beats before it becomes a situation where it's like the music is no longer the therapy. And so for me, it was really just trying to find that healthy outlet for me to be able to truly voice that I'm not okay. And then once finding that outlet, having an understanding of making sure that I can dig back deep into some of the issues that I dealt with, even as a child because you don't want to carry that over into the children that you're raising. As it was stated in the introduction, I have a 4.5, about to be 5-year-old daughter in June. And I think that was my why. That was essentially my why as to why I was like, I have to really start taking my mental health seriously. I have to really start taking all of the things that I'm dealing with within seriously, because I cannot allow for those traumas to be passed down to her, as well as her not having an understanding that the traumas that you may deal with in the future, you can get some help for those. And it's, I think it's very cliche for people to say at times, but I don't really care too much about cliches. You can really say that it's okay to not be okay. Is this okay to voice that there's an issue going on with you and you need some help? So,
Course. And it's clear that for many of us, the awareness of mental health came from what we saw and what we felt, and even when it wasn't openly talked about. And that leads us into something really important, because just because we didn't name it didn't mean it wasn't there. So I wanted to kind of talk about, like, how do mental health struggles show up in Black spaces without being named? Or like, what are some of the ways that, trauma can play out even when no one is saying the words anxiety, depression, or trauma?
I mean, think about your mental health and your physical health are connected.
Mhm.
Whether or not we want to admit it or we want to look at it or not. Your emotions as human beings, we're going to all feel all of these different feelings, and they're going to come out one way or another. So even when we're trying to suppress and keep everything bottled in and buried down deep in underneath, whether it's your relationships, whether you start isolating yourself more, heart issues from that physical health aspect. A lot of people don't really consider those stomach, the intestinal issues that can also come from a lot of anxiety and stress as well too. I mean, there's so many different areas where those emotions, they come out one way or another. So yeah.
I think that they show up in ways that we've kind of almost normalized, to kind of piggyback off of what you said, like whether it's short tempers, whether it's shutting down, overworking ourselves, or constantly saying, I'm tired, but never actually stopping to rest. Sometimes it's in the aunt who's always angry, or the uncle who drinks too much, or the friend who disappears for weeks at a time. In our community, struggle can come out as silent sarcasm or just hyper independence, because we've been taught to be strong, to push through, to not show weakness. But strength isn't the absence of pain, it's being real about it. So even when we don't call it depression or anxiety, the behaviors, the burnout, the breakdowns, the withdrawal are telling that story for us. And I think we have to start listening to that story, and to, piggyback off of what Ramaya said, the body tells us everything. Like, some things where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm exhausted. And it shouldn't always have to get to that point where you're exhausted before you rest.
So sometimes it doesn't show up.
Yeah.
There's a such thing as functional depression. Um, just real quick, I was like, when I was thinking about this, even for myself, I think it was like quite a few years ago, I was at the hospital and I was doing an assessment on somebody, and I was like, oh crap, that's me, I'm depressed. Like, I had no idea. Like, I did everything that I needed to do. I went to work, I came home, I took care of the kids. Like, at the time, I was there with my partner at the time, and we were like, I just wasn't 100% myself, but I didn't know that. So sometimes it doesn't really show up. Like, you can still function, you can still be out, you can still be in.
I think he's frozen a little bit, but let's see if he clicks back in. Okay, well, to keep things going and kind of piggyback off of what he's saying, there was a lot of powerful truth within that. You know, sometimes it doesn't show up in any obvious way. People are smiling, they're working, they're showing up for everyone else, but inside they're barely holding it together. And I feel like I've been at those places before where I'm like, woo, this is a lot. And I think that's one of the scariest parts of how mental health struggles show up, or they don't, especially in Black spaces where being strong Black woman, we've all heard that, and composed is also often how we survive. It reminds us that we can't always see who's hurting. And that's why it's so important to check in with our quote strong friends, and even on ourselves in ways that go deeper than just, you know, you good, for example.
I'm sorry to keep jumping in on you, but I think that that's a really good point that you just made. I think that sometimes we've gotten so stuck on rest as a reward instead of a requirement. You know, like you need to rest your body, like you have to recharge at some point in time. Even your cell phones have to be charged. I mean, and even when we have the mindset of wanting to take care of so many other people, a lot of us have helper hearts, right? We want to take care of everybody all the time. But you have to think, if you're not taking care of yourself and you're operating at 23% trying to take care of everybody else, imagine how much more effective you would actually be for people if you took the time to rest, reset, and then you're at 87%, because we might not ever be at 100, but at least we're at 87%. How much more would you be able to do for those people that you're saying that you're caring about, just by being able to take care of yourself and creating those spaces for you as well too? Boundaries saying no, it doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means right now I might not have the capacity. I need to, you know, take care of myself. I have certain things I have to do for myself. And superwoman syndrome, don't even get me started on that. Okay. Like we've been always running around trying to do so much for other people and pouring out and giving out. And we very rarely do give ourselves the same grace that we give other people.
That is very true. And I'm reading some of the comments, and it says, I remember saying to myself, I don't have time to break down right now. When actuality, I was breaking down, and I'm a big person where like, oh, I'm gonna schedule my breakdown. Like I don't have time right now, but like on Saturday, girl, let's cry in the shower. Like I'm a big person like that. And sometimes it's just like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, why are you doing that? Like you're not functioning how you should be functioning because you think that you are overcoming and like, oh, I'm dealing with it. And it's like, you're not really dealing with it at all. And you're not really hiding it. Like I'm a big person where I'm like, I think that I'm just hiding my emotions and think so well. My friend was like, girl, I could tell something's wrong because you were acting so strange. So I just wanted to add that as well.
No, and also piggybacking off of something that Ramaya said, work is a way that mental health struggles show up. You know, we have people who are workaholics, people who, as they like to tell you, put themselves into their work, constantly putting themselves into their work to mask the things that they're dealing with. Also, you being the friend that I like to help everyone else, but when it comes time to receiving help for myself, well, you know, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be a burden, but yet everybody else can be that. You can be that for everyone else. Everyone else can be that to you, but you can't be the person that's, you know, when it's time for you to ask, you can't ask. You know, it's something wrong with that. And so that's another thing that we need to deal with, especially as I stated before, the friends that are the I'm helping everybody else out to get through their struggle.
Yeah, and everything that we've all shared in the comments on here has so far has highlighted how complex all of this is. And sometimes the struggle is loud, sometimes it's invisible, sometimes we've carried it for so long, it just feels like a part of our life. So I wanted to shift the lens a bit, and we talked about how mental health struggles show up, but now I want to ask how or what does healing look like to you? And I mean personally, not professionally, what you've read or taught, but in your own life. What does healing feel like, and what do you hope it could be?
Yeah, hopefully I don't get cut off again. My phone overheated. For me, it looks like I'm hitting on all cylinders. I'm back. Everything is at ease. Like I'm working out. I'm socializing. I am, participating in my hobbies. I am like just feeling at ease. And when there is something that just creates a little, disease or whatever for me, I'm able to manage it. I'm able to get through it. I'm able to communicate it. I'm able to understand what that was, what that emotion was, what that feeling was, whatever the situation was, and able to manage it in a way that's effective. So for me, it's just balance. It's acknowledgement of my emotions and my feelings. It's not sitting with them and allowing myself to move past them and get to the other side of things.
Okay.
I think for me, healing looks like being able to say no, even if it puts you in a place where that person that you're saying no to might feel some type of way or take it some type of way. Because it's not that I'm saying no to, it's not that I'm saying no to hurt your feelings. I'm actually saying no to actually help the course of the relationship that we have. I'm actually saying no because at this particular time, I can't meet that because the capacity that I have right now is so overwhelming that I'm not able to meet that task for you right now. Healing also is making sure that you have a genuine support system around you that isn't going to necessarily be the yes men or yes women or yes people for you. They're gonna hold you accountable, and they know what genuine healthy accountability looks like. I think for me also, just on a personal note, sometimes healing for me looks like, looking at my daughter sometimes and just being like, hey, can we just sit down and have some cuddle time,
Yeah.
right quick? And she'll just be like, okay, daddy, okay, daddy, that's fine. Not necessarily wanting to, well, not necessarily want to use my daughter as like a security blanket, but just knowing that I just need to step away from this and go back to the reason as to why I do the work I do the work that I do. And turning off work that I do for a little while in order to be able to come back full throttle for everything that we have to deal with on the outside.
Okay. That was great. For me, healing feels like reclaiming peace in everyday moments, waking up without that, heavy weight on my chest, being able to feel safe in my own skin, allowing myself to be vulnerable without fear of judgment. It's about reconnecting with joy, even when life is hard, because at some points it just is, and finding those spaces where I can be just me, imperfect and whole at the same time. Healing also means breaking the cycle of silence in my family and having honest conversations that weren't possible before. And ultimately, healing is freedom, freedom from shame, from hiding pain, from carrying burdens alone. It's a journey, not a destination, but every small step towards that feels powerful and necessary.
I totally agree with everything that everybody stated when they said, what is healing? I know personally, I like to garden, right? So I love barefoot gardening. If there's any gardeners in here, good job, great for your mental health, right? It's something about seeing something going from seed to fruit. Where you can pick it, you can hold it, and you're like, I did that. But to what you guys were stated, that acknowledgement, being able to acknowledge my feelings, being able to express myself and not feel bad about expressing myself when I'm feeling a certain kind of way, and doing that without that shame, and helping other people also feel like they have that space to be able to be vulnerable as well too. I think we just need to remember that common humanity, right? We are all human. We all have those different experiences. So I think if we could have a little bit more compassion, we would also have a lot more healing in this world as well too.
Thank you guys for sharing, what healing means personally. It really reminds us that healing isn't just about fixing something broken, but about finding freedom and peace on our own terms. And that brings up a really important point about how we often understand strength in our culture, especially in Black communities. So I want to ask, how have you seen strength and silence get confused? And how does that misunderstanding impact how we deal with mental health? And I can start if anybody. Okay, go ahead.
Thinking as a Black man, just and that's how we and the stigma of when you're complaining, then you're whining, you're being a baby, or being a female, like you're being a whole little woman. Like if you're sitting there, you're complaining or even expressing your feelings. So that silence has been exhibited as strength, but then as a result of that, it starts to eat us up inside. And then that's when we result to the other things we mentioned, as far as alcohol or drugs, or even becoming impulsive spending, or women, or other things to kind of work through that silence and those emotions. But yeah, silence is not a strength; it's a hindrance. And having emotions is not a weakness.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, to kind of piggyback off of what Lamar or what he said, is that in many Black communities, strength is are often seen as the ability to endure without complaint, to stay silent, to keep pushing, even when things are breaking inside. And silence just becomes a way to protect ourselves and our families from judgment and just vulnerability. But that silence can be mistaken for strength, when really it can be a sign of pain that's not being addressed. Confusing strength with silence means people don't get the support that they need because they feel like asking for help is a weakness. And it keeps us stuck in cycles where we are surviving and not truly healing. And true strength to me is having the courage to speak up and to be vulnerable and just seek help, even when that feels hard or scary, which I get it. It is very, opening up to people is very, very scary. But that's the kind of strength that leads to real healing.
One more piece to it, though, is that there was not enough conversation with that message. That we weren't told when and how and where. Like, yes, there are certain situations where we can't express our emotions, where it's not safe. And it is difficult being in the world and having to, still manage things, and you still have to hold on to certain things, and you can't allow yourself to break down in those moments. So the information that was not given was when. You need to be able to, as a warrior, know when to put down your sword and where it's safe and when it's safe to come home and be okay and express yourself. So I think that silence in the house and silence in the spaces that where you need to open up is also a big problem as well.
I can appreciate Lamar saying that, because there's always been a huge stigma within the Black community that men need to hold their emotions in. Men need to hold things in because that's the true sign of strength. Being strong is being the provider and protector for your family and for your community. But I was watching, I can't pinpoint who the person was, the influencer was on social media. But the thing that they said was Black men need to start figuring out how to define what manhood is without protecting and providing. Because for so long, we as Black men have been taught that the main thing it is to be a man is to protect and to provide. But if you don't have a family to protect, and if you don't have a family to provide for, then are you still a man? So figuring out what it is that you need to do to be able to define what manhood looks like without providing and protecting for someone.
I think with that is too the lack of understanding and a lack of information. So I wouldn't take away protecting and providing, but I would just make sure that we are defining it a little bit more. So protection does not just necessarily just mean physical protection. You can protect someone financially, you can protect someone emotionally, you can protect someone mentally. And if you don't have a family to protect and provide for, then you definitely need to it starts with you to protect and provide for yourself in all of those areas. You need to protect your mental. You need to provide for yourself some level of stability, whether it's mentally or physically or emotionally. And doing that, then yeah, you create a problem for yourself. So I don't think get away as much as learn to better understand it and know and where and how.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna add on to both of what you guys said, that it really challenges the core of how I've been taught to see black masculinity, because when manhood is only tied to provision and just protection, it leaves no room for rest, for softness, for emotional expression, and it definitely doesn't leave space for struggle. So maybe part of healing in our communities is expanding what manhood can look like and what is included, vulnerability, emotional presence, and just self-awareness. What if a man could be strong and say, I'm not okay? You know, that question kind of really raised, or your statement really raised, like, opens the doors for us to reimagine healthier models, not just for men, but for all of us who were raised around that version of masculinity as well.
If I could make a suggestion, I would also suggest too that when it comes to Black masculinity, that we stop looking outside of our own race and outside of our own experiences and do more self-definition. And Black masculinity is not monolithic. It covers the whole spectrum. And I think and I believe that our Black masculinity is more protected, it's more established. I can't find the word I'm looking for. Um, than we realize. I guess what I'm saying is that it's not as bad as we think it is. We just have to redefine what we're seeing. We just have to redefine it.
Okay. Well,
Exactly, because we're more collective and we're more communicative, community-like. So yeah, it's not exact. I'm sorry, I can go on and on about masculinity, but it's not what we're seeing on television. It's not what we're seeing on the media. Like, there is good Black fathers. There are positive Black role models. There are a lot that is there that's established that is not necessarily being communicated or talked about or discussed. And yes, masculinity looks different, and it's a little bit more in depth from our culture if we look at the originality of masculinity within our culture. And it's adding toxicity with masculinity should not be a thing.
Dig it. And I totally agree, but we also have to deal with the toxicity. We have to deal with it, yeah.
Of course. And that reimagining of manhood and really just reimagining strength and just other things leads us to something else I think is so important, which is permission. Because a lot of us, especially in the Black communities, caring for your mind isn't something we were taught or told we could do. We had to unlearn a lot just to get here. So I want to ask you all, who or what gave you the permission to care for your mind? Was it a person, an experience, a breaking point? Like, what shifted things for you? And I can go first. I would say it wasn't one person. It was a breaking point. I reached a moment where pushing through just wasn't working anymore. I was just exhausted. I was emotionally drained. And I realized that no one was going to save me if I didn't start showing up for myself differently. But over time, I started just seeing other people, like friends, Black women in particular, who were unapologetically going to therapy, and they were setting these boundaries, and they were talking openly about mental health. That kind of gave me permission, and it showed me that caring for your mind isn't selfish, it's survival, it's self-respect. But now I try to be that permission for others too, because once you know that you're allowed to feel this way or heal, you can't go back to pretending that you are fine once you get to that point.
I agree with you as well too. I think it was a personal experience with grief and loss that actually allowed me to give myself permission to really take in and to really try to understand. I was one of those workaholics, right? You know, you just try to distract yourself by just keep working and working and working, and you're exhausted and you're tired and you're overwhelmed. And then you see that pouring out in the other areas of your life as well too. And at some point in time, you have to say, this has to stop. This is not healthy for me. This is not okay. So I had to give myself permission to actually say, you know what, I am not okay. I know that I need to do something, and I know that this cannot continue like this, because if it continues like this, I'm going to be in the hospital. I'm going to be the one that's going to have all of these other things going on just based off of trying to avoid my feelings instead of recognizing and acknowledging them and saying that it's okay that I'm not okay. Like, you've had an experience that is hurt, it hurts you. You're emotionally in a state where you need healing, and it's okay to say that I need help. And it's okay to go out and seek that help and get what you need to get so that way you can heal on your own. So I had to give myself permission. And not even just give yourself permission, because when we were talking about work as like rest as a requirement and not a reward, right? It was that idea, like I had to say, you know what, it's okay for me to do this, and it's okay for me to make the time and the space for myself. I don't have to fill it with other people and other things. I have to make time for myself, because I cannot be there for others if I'm not there for me.
And all of that is kind of clarity, like it's power, and it's just a step towards healing. It's not giving up, it's basically fighting for yourself. So you're self-advocating, and just know that you are not alone in that. So whether it's in this room, in your community, or just among people who have been there too, there's love and support around you when you're going through these different things.
I think for me, one of what gave me permission was recognizing that there was a way that I was exhibiting my anger amongst people, and more so amongst my family and my family and my partner. And it was coming out in very volatile ways. And the light bulb was seeing my daughter's reaction to a situation that happened between me and her mother, and it becoming a situation where it was like, okay, so now, because by that time I had already started therapy, but I don't want to necessarily say I wasn't taking therapy as serious as I should be, but it was just a thing of, okay, you telling me this and I know this already. You telling me this and I know this already. So when are we going to get to the point where we start fixing me? And then when that incident happened, it allowed us to start digging a lot deeper, and it brought me to this proverbial wall, if you will. And that wall was something that I was covering up that I didn't want anyone else to see, but I had covered it up so much that I didn't want to see it as well. And the source of my anger was, I'm a person that I don't like when I'm not heard. And the source of me not liking when I'm not heard is being molested twice. Once when I was 4, and another time when I was 9. And you start to feel as though through those times that your no is not being heard. And so when I get into a relationship, and I feel like my no is not being heard within the relationship, then, well, that's a situation that I can control. I can control the relationship. And even if I have to control the relationship to the point where I have to fight in order to make sure that I'm being heard, that's the end goal. And so having to start realizing and recognizing you don't have to fight the world, and you don't have to fight the world all the time, and you also don't have to fight your family as much to be heard. But if it becomes a situation where you aren't being heard, then stepping away from that situation can be the best thing, and you now have the choice as an adult to be able to step away from that situation. But that was the thing that gave me permission, so much so of seeing the reaction from my daughter of how my anger was being exhibited to my family.
Thank you again for your honesty. Moments like this remind us why these conversations are so necessary, because healing starts when we tell the truth, even when it's heavy. And many of us are just getting to the place where we can say, I need help. And that means that we've had to unlearn a lot about strength, about therapy, about what it means to be vulnerable. So I do want to ask, what have you had to unlearn about therapy specifically, or just vulnerability in your own journey? And what old messages did you have to challenge in order to show up for yourself differently?
For me, and I guess I can bring it back to relationships, being in a relationship with your partner. Vulnerability should not be seen as weak, and vulnerability should not be seen as a weapon that can be used back against you whenever there is a conflict or a disagreement. And if there is somebody that you are in relationship that will use your vulnerability back against you, you can leave. Like I promise you, it's okay to leave. And there is somebody that's out there that won't use your vulnerability, your vulnerable moments back against you. And I think I also had to unlearn what I had to unlearn about therapy. I'm a church kid. I'm a church kid. I'm a PK, and I'm a PK within the Church of God in Christ. And if you know anything about the Church of God in Christ, that's like one of the big boy Pentecostal denominations within the church. And so it was always, hey, pray about it and seek God. You don't need no therapy. You don't need no therapy. You just need to pray about it and you need to seek God. But my mother is an actual missionary within the Church of God in Christ. And the moment that she started struggling with inner demons that she had, which for her could be traced back to being molested and sexually abused by her adopted father. It put her in a place where she decided to go to therapy. And the moment that my mom decided to go to therapy, I was like, okay, well, my mom heavy in the church and she going to therapy. So, I can get this therapy thing a shot. So.
Okay. Similar to what you said, I had to unlearn the idea that vulnerability is weakness, that if I opened up, it meant I wasn't strong or I couldn't handle life. I grew up thinking that being private was kind of being strong, because that's kind of what I've always seen. And that if you needed therapy, you were basically crazy or just something was wrong with you. And that was in the media, that was in, personal, etc. But the truth is, holding everything in was breaking me down. And I just had to realize that being vulnerable is actually a sign of strength, and it takes courage to be real about what you were feeling. And I also had to unlearn that therapy wasn't or I had to unlearn that therapy wasn't for people like me. Like, if it was something other people did. Now I see it as a tool for growth and just reflection and survival. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about understanding yourself.
Yeah, there's a quote that says that we must embrace our pain and then use it as fuel for our journey. And I think it's a lot about that acknowledgement of those experiences that we've all had, and those different things that shape us into being the people that we are, the human beings that we are. Um, I think I agree with both of you guys on what you stated. I think the main thing that we have to unlearn about vulnerability in therapy is it as being bad. Like even the word vulnerability, when you say it to people, people naturally go on the deep ends if you say it. And it's like we need to understand and we need to redefine what vulnerability actually is, because it actually creates a space to build relationships and to actually help, not harm. And but so many people have such a negative connotation around just the word itself. And you can see it when you say it to people. I see it all the time when I say it in my therapy groups with my clients as well too. So I think that's one of the bigger things that you have to unlearn. And then knowing that you don't have to have a big dramatic experience in order to need therapy. You know, sometimes it's better be proactive than reactive, right? Like when you start feeling those things, when you start feeling yourself being like something might be going on, like going ahead and seeing somebody, talking to it, talking about what's going on instead of trying to, oh, I can get through this, I can make it work. But to the other point, I know that I'm actually glad that you brought up churches, right? Because I know here, at least in Kentucky, I was actually really glad to see so many churches starting to have a mental health aspect within their church as well too. Because for so long, so many people have relied on spirituality and, just pray about it. It'll be okay. But to see the church embrace the idea of having those kind of services and resources for the people, I thought it was always a really good thing. And I was glad to start seeing that shift. It's not everywhere yet, but I was glad to start seeing that shift more in churches as well too.
Perfect.
I wanted
And
to say something. I'm sorry.
oh,
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, so I agree with everyone what they're saying on this panel. It is so true. I am certified mental health as well, but I think setting boundaries as well. And the Black community, we tend to have dual diagnosis. So with that being said, you might, from your traumas as a child or going, through life, you might, have an addiction. Okay. And then with that addiction, you don't even know that you're going through a mental health crisis. And so you end up, self-medicating. And that can cause a real big, issue. I know when it hit home for me with my brother, he was an active father in his daughter's life. He had a brand new baby girl, his first baby ever. Um, he settled down and he took care of his daughter for a whole year while the mom just went straight back to work. My brother was crying out for help. Okay. And I know he was crying out for my mom the most. And when she wasn't listening, he went into a catatonia state to where now he does not want to be a father. Um, my brother used to be vibrant. He used to be a person that, works all the time. But because of him self-medicating and getting something possibly wrong, and that drug, whatever drug it was, my brother is not the same anymore. And I think and I know this for a fact because I did a lot of research and I have seen it firsthand. you know, from my own childhood growing up, taking care, and I was living in California at this time, taking care of my siblings, taking care of, you know, making sure they go to school, make sure we go to school, making sure, you know, we're fed, things like that. While my mother and my father was in their own addiction, was a lot on me. Okay. It started from when I was little. But I didn't take to it. I was like, you know, this is how it's supposed to be. This is life, you know. Um, and then as I grew older, I didn't have any kids. I didn't have my first child till I was 20. Um, I knew like I'm gonna be the best mom. I always wanted kids after the fact I was taking care of my siblings. But then as I got a little older, started having my kids, I dabbled in my own addiction. Okay. Didn't realize that I also was this person that dealt with bad anxiety. I dealt with PTSD. I dealt with depression. There was times where I wanted to, you know, commit suicide because I thought I did not belong. I thought I was not being heard. There was a whole bunch of things I was doing at that time. And I think now with me taking care of, um, you know, my own mental health, I take care of my own children's mental health while they're young, you know, and what that looks like for them, they go horseback riding. They have something here where, you know, the children go horseback riding, pick their horses, you know, take care of that horse, you know. And I think it's just a real good thing for these kids now because, you know, you have bullies, you have people that's just cruel, you have triggers, you know, something might trigger you. And it might trigger me because you don't know that I went through this and then you do something and it's like, okay, I'm about to lose it, you know? So it's all about, I think, you know, a lot of people going through the dual diagnosis, not knowing that they have a mental health issue and they self-diagnose themselves with, you know, street drugs or alcohol. And then it makes it worser. And then it's like you can't go back, you know, it's going to take some time to heal. And then also, as I was talking to my husband, like vulnerability, you know, not being judgmental, not, you know, being safe, you know, being able to express yourself without people coming for you or judging you, you know. So I think all that plays a big role in the communities, period. Whether it's a pregnant mom, because that's what I work with a lot, with a lot of pregnant moms. Um, I work with families. So I think it all just, you know, it ties into together. And I try to give my own testimony to others because I know I can relate in some way to what, you know, either similar what you have been through or, you know, close to it, because you'll be surprised how many people's story is similar, you know. So that's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you so much for everybody for being so real in this space and for naming just what, you know, you've had to unlearn and what healing and vulnerability actually look like when we stop performing, you know, different things. But I wanted to end this question the last question before we open up to Q&A. Because we talk so much about like personal healing, we know that this isn't just an individual issue, it's about systems and access and what our communities truly need. So as our final question for our panelists, before we open it up to the audience, what would true mental health access look like for Black communities? And I can start. So I would say that true mental health access for Black communities would mean more than just having like a clinic nearby or just like a therapist number. It would mean care that is culturally aware, financially accessible, and just emotionally safe. It would look like seeing therapists who understand our lived experiences, not just our symptoms, but our stories. It would mean having mental health resources in schools, churches, barbershops, and the places where we actually live and gather. And true access would also mean breaking that stigma, making it normal to say, I'm in therapy, or, I need support without a side eye or just shame. And it would include making care affordable and available before we hit a crisis. So for me, true access looks like healing being seen as a right, not just a luxury. And it looks like our people are being allowed to prioritize their peace and support it in doing so.
Well, I guess I'm gonna be the person to step in as the organizer in this scenario. For me, I feel like having a government, whether on the federal or state level, that has an understanding of knowing that quality, proper mental health services are not only needed, but should absolutely be required for every person in this country. And more so for every Black person in this country, because of the generational traumas that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, just being Black in America. I feel like if they come to the conclusion of whatever reparations are supposed to look like for people of African descent in this country, that mental health services should be one of the key things that's added to reparations. But until they bump their head and realize that should be a thing, I feel like more states in this country should expand Medicaid for people within their state, and that mental health services should be a key thing that's included within your Medicaid. And I know for most states and most providers of Medicaid, that is a thing that is included in certain cases. But it should definitely be a thing. And I'm only really bringing that up because, being the organizer that's in Florida, we currently don't have Medicaid expanded to people within our state. Instead we got a whole governor that's, stealing $10 million of actual Medicaid money to essentially pass it off to other people for their own personal benefits. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I did want to open up the floor and see some of the questions that and if Matilda, if you see them before I do, I wanted to
Grace
scroll
had her
them
hand
up.
raised, so I know we're over time, but I at least wanted Grace raised her hand a few times in this. Grace, did you want to say anything?
Thank you. I put some of my comments in the chat. But when someone, I forgot who it was, but someone mentioned permission. What about courage? Because I think a lot of times it just takes courage to say, yeah, I'm not okay, or to find therapy or a therapist that you can work well with. Another thing too is when we were mentioning superhero syndrome and how a lot of us might be workaholics, and that can drive a lot of the mental issues that one might have. Our culture, American culture, is very individualistic. It makes you feel like you're an island. So we pick up our bootstraps and we go to work and we do these things. It feels like the system itself doesn't support that kind of wellness. I mean, look how many hours a week we work. So I would just also argue that, kind of like what I think it was Jamil that just mentioned it, how the government and the powers that be there's still a disconnect between what is being offered now to people, and people of all different backgrounds, not just the Black community, but what we can do as a society as a whole. So yeah, I'm sorry, but thanks for letting me share, and I've really enjoyed the panel. Thank you.
Of course. Did any other questions or any comments or anything like that you wanted the panelists to answer?
Could I make a point to what she just stated?
Go ahead.
I think sometimes, especially when you're even thinking about your mental health, when you're talking about permission and courage, right? It's like, how often do we know what it is that we need to do, but we don't do it? Like we might
Absolutely.
and so we might see certain things that and we know what it is that the steps that we should take, but it takes us to allow ourselves or to make the choice really to do what it is that we need to do to help ourselves and to get out of that. It's like most of the time we stay stuck in the mud, right? You keep spinning your wheels and you're not going anywhere because we're not making the changes or making the choice to bring in the elements that we need in order to elevate ourselves as well too. So when you were talking about permission and courage, it kind of made me think more so towards that. It's like, yes, you have to know what it is you need, and then you have to actually take action in order to do what it is that you need to do to help yourself and to grow as well too.
Okay, well, I do want to thank you all so much for being here and for showing up with your honesty and your vulnerability and your heart. These conversations are not always easy, but they are necessary. And your presence tonight helped create a space where truth and healing could live side by side. So let's carry these stories, reflections, and commitment with us beyond this room. And let's keep checking in with ourselves and with each other. Healing is ongoing and we don't have to do it alone. And I want to thank you so much to our lovely panelists who spoke tonight. And I also wanted to do a shameless plug of we'd love for you guys to join us again next month for our June book club meeting. We are celebrating Pride Month by reading Don't Cry for Me by Dr. Daniel Black. It is a powerful novel that explores empathy, forgiveness, identity, and complexities of love, especially between Black fathers and sons. That is on June 18th next month. Please feel free to sign up and we'll drop that link in the chat. But until then, thank you guys so much for taking the time out. Take care of yourselves and each other. And thank you again for being here.
Matilde? I'm not sure if she's still there.
You should be. Let me see.
Or I can talk with Lauren. That's no problem.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you so much. We're going to send you more information after this call.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Diane. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good night. Good night. Hey, for a second there, Lauren, I lost service. So I hope it didn't end the presentation too soon. Okay. Okay, we should be good to go. Kaylin, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm trying to unmute it.
You're good.
I'm out here making additional connections on behalf of BBM, connecting us with AJC. So
Thank you. Thank you. You're good. I'm going to get off the call, but I just want to say, y'all, congratulations. Lauren, that was really great.
y'all did that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matilda.
No, this all of us.
Yes, y'all did that. Y'all did a job. It was very informational, very engaging. I took some screenshots.
Not the flyer as the background. Come on, Kaylin.
I was trying to get it on, but I was having technical difficulties myself going back and forth between the phone and the computer. So yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all. Y'all did a wonderful job. Kind of wish this came before the postcard party, but hopefully those postcards, they still feel that much more motivated to continue to write their messages. So.
Yes. At one point, first of all, the engagement in the chat was, I think, the
Yeah.
best we've ever seen. So major shout out to that. And then the other thing is, I think this next to the New York event, I think this is the most, actually no, I think we had more on this call than the New York event. I think in New York we had like 74 people, and at this call we reached I think close to 90 people, maybe even more once I look at the
At
Zoom
one time,
information.
we were at 100 because it's 4 squares, 5 rows,
Mm.
and it was 5 sheets of that. So yeah.
Yes, yes. So shout out, Lauren. That was great, and shout out to you, Kaylin, for bringing the professionals and Jamil. Just the honesty of the conversations. It just revealed how much we need to have it, and so I'll definitely look at the feedback from the chat and also the feedback from mobilize and put that together, and just send that out to everybody. But yeah, that was, and people were waiting to talk. Like, it was really good. It was, people really wanted to talk and say something and share, and so it was really good. So shout out to you, Lauren, and shout out to the Kaylin, and just how it just all comes together. I just love the growth, let me just say that. So thank you guys.
Agreed.
All right, y'all. Thank you again. Have a good night. I will be talking to y'all via email soon.
But I'll see you in the morning.
Of course. Of course. Bye.
Bye.